Good day, sir. Good day, classmates. I'm Indian Cadet Christian Polorado. We're gonna discuss the theory of demographic transition as it affects the global population. So next is, what is demographic transition? So demographic transition is a theory that society progressed from a pre-modern regime of high fertility and high mortality to a post-modern regime of low fertility and low mortality. The cause of the transition has been sought in the reduction of the death rate by controlling epidemic and contagious disease. Then, with the modernization, children become more costly. Cultural changes weaken the importance of children. The increase of empowerment of women to make their own productive decisions leads to smaller families. Thus, there is a changes in values emphasizing the quality of children rather than their quantity. In short, the fertility transition is becoming a universal phenomena in which every country may be placed on a continuum of progress in the transition. So next, demographic transition affects global population. So based on the theory of demographic transition, so mataas ang mortality rate sa ka country or sa ka place due to lack of sanitation. So kung lack ni of sanitation, magawas din ni ang virus and diseases. So mag-cause og pandemic og epidemic. So apilan pag yun og low facilities ang mga hospital kay poor man ang country. So apilan pag yun mo og di pa yun modern ang medicine. So dagan og reason anong motaas ang mortality rate sa usa ka country or usa ka place. So nganong ma-affects man na sa global population kay daghan mamatay. So ang global population mo decrease. So in terms naman sa high fertility rate, so kung taas gay fertility rate ang usa ka country or usa ka place due to nindot ang facility sa hospital, nindot og facility modern ilang medicine, naka-educate, so ilang country kay dato, so nay job opportunity. So ang mga parents maka-afford og pa-hospital silang anak sa private or ma-public man na siya kay dato man ang country. So matambalan na dayon, so dili sa mamatay. So higher chances nga mo survive ang bata. So ngano ma-affect man sa global population, so mag-increase, so mabuhi man ang tao, so mo increase din ang global population. So one of example ani kay karon nga pandemic. So as we all know nga daghan jud namatay ning pandemic, so over 1 million. So unsa may naka-affect ani sa global population, so ni decrease ang global population kay daghan man namatay sa pandemic. So mao na ang example sa affect mao na ang example sa demographic transition affect to global population. So next is analyze political, economical, cultural, and social factors underlying the global movement of people and displays first-hand knowledge of experience of OFW. So in terms of political, ang reason nga move jud ang tao sa usa ka place or usa ka country kay due to war. For example na lang kaning Ukraine and Russia. So sige pa man sila away, so ang mga tao mo ato og lain nga borders para lang ma-save ilang lives. So next, in terms of economical, so ang reason ang tao mo atog lain country or mo lain og place kay higher wages man siya and better employment and higher standards of living and educational opportunities. So sa cultural kay migrate experience multiple stress that can impact their mental well-being, including the loss of cultural norms, religious customs, and social support system, adjustment to a new culture, and changes identity and concept of self. So, in terms naman sa social factor, so the social effects of migration among others consist of change in family composition, so family separation and abandonment of old people, child outcomes in terms of labor, health, and education. So the experience naman sa OFW. So first jud ang ma-experience jud sa OFW is homesick. Kay nabaghuan man sila sa environment sa other place o sa pasad layo iyang pamilya niya, na culture shock sad siya sa usa ka lugar. So next is communication gap and cultural difference. So mo na niya akong gi-state kay lain man nga culture ang lugar, so maglisod sa adjust. So next is financial. So instead of maggasto gani ang mga OFW dito, ila na lang i-save alang money yang uban gani, ila na lang ipada silang family. Instead of magbuy sila og mga new clothes, mga new gadgets o kuan, ila na lang i-save kay dira man gyud dako ilang sweldo, na man gyud kasagaran ana nga kamay og sweldo. So lastly is maltreatment and others maltreatment. So naman gyud man news nga naigipatay nga OFW. So sa maritime na ay gilabay sa dagat nya gidunggab, gikulata. So mao na nga di jud lalim nga mag OFW kay layo pa sa pamilya nya wa pa kay maduulan nya ma-stress pa jud ka. So that's all my report, sir. Thank you.
Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Anjali Pansoy and I will report about the personal definition of global citizenship and appreciate the ethical obligation of global citizenship. The personal definition of the global citizenship is as a global citizen is someone who is aware of and understand the wider world and their place in it. They take an active role in their community and work with others to make our planet more peaceful, sustainable, and fair. And at a global level, their responsibilities include the responsibilities to understand one's own perspective and those of others, and to protect the principle of cultural diversity, to make connections and build social and working relationships with people from the other countries and culture, to understand the ways in which the people and countries of the world are interconnected and interdependent, to understand leading global issues and their national impact, and to advocate the practice of global citizenship in their own countries, especially for their implementation of internationally agreements, convention, and treaties. And that's all.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, cadets. I'm Engineer Cadet Arnold C. Union. So for today's report, I would like to talk about my topic. So, what is global migration in contemporary world? So, Global migration is debated just about as often as it's misunderstood. However, the reasons why people migrate differ depending on an individual situation. In this post, we will explore what exactly is global migration, dissect its current state, highlight some of the factors that cause global migration, and study the pros and cons associated with global migration. As a global phenomenon, people are moving just about everywhere. In particular parts, Media LLC indicates that the largest area of regional migration is from Southeast Asia to the Middle East, which is largely due to oil construction booms in the Arabian Peninsula. The biggest flow between individual countries is between Mexico and the United States, the latter making the largest single migrant destination in the world. Many migration routes are within the same continents and regions with people moving to neighboring countries. So how people migrate depends greatly on each nation, current immigration laws, and the safety of the route itself. While some migrants are able to travel by airplane or train, others do not have the same luxury. Those looking to enter Europe through North Africa often face a particular pursuit. An extremely overcrowded boat over the Mediterranean Sea, sometimes with a Saharan desert trek directly beforehand. Transportation is one of many examples of how immigration can take drastically different forms. So, why do people move? Global migration can be understood as a cause and effect relationship, though the causes are just as numerous as their effects. People move across international borders for a variety of reasons. So first, safety. Second, natural disaster. Third, political conflict. Fourth, education. Fifth, family. Sixth, career. And last is economic betterment. So this is the push-pull factor. Some of the reasons that trigger global migration can be explained by what's known as the push-pull factor. Push-pull factors in the destination country that attract the individual or group to leave their home. These factors attract people to a new place largely because of the opportunities presented in the new location were not available to them previously. An example of a pull factor would include a family moving from a country with minimal job opportunities to a new location with more opportunities for a successful career. The beneficial elements that the new country presents encourages people to migrate there in order to seek a better life for their families. A push factor refers to conditions which force people to leave their homes. A person will typically move because of distress, safety, natural disaster, or political conflict. Although push factors don't require a person to leave their home, the conditions impacting the push factors often negatively impact the quality of life for a person if they choose to stay. Places contribute to push factors that trigger migration for that country residents. Push factors in particular are often underestimated in their popularity and frequency, which is emphasized by manpower and surveys of employees across 27 countries. In this survey about relocating internationally, 82% of respondents said that they would move for a pay increase, 74% will move to increase their career, and 47% would move to learn another language. In short, people migrate for all kinds of unexpected reasons. Whether individuals migrate due to push or pull factors, there are undeniable benefits involved with adapting to a new country. Some benefits are simply fun and exciting. Learning a new culture and experiencing new opportunities such as tasting new foods and getting to a different approach to communication. or immersing yourself in the new cultural activities can be exciting and engaging. Other benefits, namely personal freedoms, are essential. People may leave their home countries in search of safety and religious, academic, or political freedom in their new countries. It's estimated that around 11 million Syrians have fled their homes since the outbreak of the civil war in March 2011. Many fleeing of their safety in search for a better quality of life for their families. In this example, migration can improve people's lives drastically. Migration can present a great variety of challenges ranging from simple discomfort to profound shocks in mental health. Migrating to a new place where the diet or the local culture is largely unfamiliar may be quite challenging. Imagine moving from the US where drinking coffee or tea in the mornings is a cultural norm to living in Central Asia where in some parts drinking salty butter tea is the norm. Culture shock is predictable culprit for migratory challenges. Changes in language, diet, politics, religion, and environment are immediately visible. For example, those who migrate from the Middle East of Africa are aware of the difficulties of adjusting to colder temperatures in Scandinavia. What might not be as obvious, though this is the challenge of adjusting to extremely short daylight hours in the winter, making seasonal affective disorder an anticipated hurdle for many immigrants. Furthermore, the act of leaving a home country can be emotionally difficult, especially for those who never to be able to return and or were forced out by situations that they couldn't control. Having to immigrate as a refuge from a war Syria breaks up families and can destabilize immigrants' sense of self, which could lead to depression. This challenge obviously should not be taken lightly. Help and support are key. So that's all about my topic. So thank you.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'm Indian Cadet Inson John Paul, and I'm here to report about the 4 types of global migration. So, what are the 4 types of global migration? There are 4 types of global migration. Consist of labor migration in the EO, which has highly skilled labor migration, and unskilled low-wage labor and temporary migration. And the second is forced migration. Third is international retirement migration, or IRM. And lastly, internal migration. So labor migration in the EO. Labor migration represents the movements of individuals from one country to another with the purpose of seeking work or responding to recruitment drives in another country. However, in labor migration, it is possible to identify 2 types of migrants, which is highly skilled labor and unskilled low-wage labor. Highly skilled labor migration. This represents only a small percentage of migration, and it is the type of migration most demanded by the host countries, who develop special types of incentives to attract highly skilled labor, often in specific categories such as doctors and nurses. The attraction of highly skilled labor lies in the ability of the host country to accumulate human capital with no education or training costs. However, the loss of skilled labor, a phenomenon known as the brain drain, can have severe consequences for the sending countries, which lose human capital and all the money invested in the education and training of the people who leave. Nevertheless, it can be seen as an attractive solution for solving problems of labor shortage and a way to increase economic production. Since the 1980s, the USA, Canada, and Australia have bad specific policies to attract skilled labor in particular categories, using a point system to score applicants who wish to immigrate there. This policy has been followed more recently by some European countries and parts of Asia. Highly skilled labor tends to comprise young to early middle-aged people who are from specific sectors, for example, medicine or computer programming. Many people stay in the country they migrate to and then raise families and assimilate themselves in the population, retaining a high level of educational attainment in their offspring. Next is unskilled low-wage labor and temporary migration. After 1945, low-wage labor was the main type of migration which played a very important role in the economic construction of the industrial countries. Not all of this immigration is legal, and some countries, such as the USA, has been very attractive to illegal migrants, especially from Mexico is illegal, and some and other Latin American countries willing to work in the black economy. In 1988, Sassen, in her approach to the global cities, referred to the dual economy, which uses the low-skilled laborers as a primary source for the low-wage jobs. This constitutes the largest percentage of economic migration and is the process that attracts more attention from the media and social organizations. Unskilled low-wage labor is usually also linked to illegal migrants who clandestinely enter the host country. Such people are the most vulnerable to unjust exploitation and human rights violation because they have an illegal status. If they remain, they frequently end up staying in deprived areas and joining a community of deprived people and are unable to climb out of poverty without themselves. When the Central and Eastern European countries joined the EU in 2004, large-scale labor migration from these countries to the West started, especially to countries such as the UK and Ireland, which did not impose any interim immigration controls. The labor market in the still growing economies until the financial crisis of 2008 and the subsequent recession was and is primarily in three sectors. First is agriculture, which picking and processing agricultural and horticultural products. The hospitality industry, hotels and restaurants, and construction, which is very famous in immigrants. Many of these people are temporary migrants, possibly seasonal and also for short periods until they have amassed enough money to start a business back home, for example. These migrants are also usually young but may include middle-aged people who may bring their dependents with them. Temporary migrants may be well educated but unable to transfer their skill to the host country owing to the need for certain certificates for professions, for example, where the host country does not recognize their qualifications. The second advantages types of migration is forced migration. Forced migration includes not only refugees and asylum seekers fleeing war or political repressions, but also people displaced from their homes by projects such as dams or roads or as a result for certain natural disasters, as also referred to another mode of forced migration. The trafficking of people with special emphasis on women and children is time for the sex industry. While some countries may be favor destinations for such migration, asylum seekers to Britain have been an issue in recent years. Other countries which do not otherwise feature as places receiving large numbers of labor migration may in fact welcome asylum seekers. Scandinavian countries, for example. The educational level of many refugees, especially asylum seekers, may be quite high. Their exam may result from them being politically active students, for example, or in the case of people displaced by civil war, it may be very low. Some asylum seekers return to their native country if the circumstances there Iraq is returning after the fall of Saddam Hussein. Many assimilate into the local ethnic communities and become part of the multicultural society, often having a relatively low socio-economic status. International Retirement Migration, or IRM. International retirement migration is a phenomenon of the northern countries such as Germany, the UK, and the Nordic countries, characterized by the residential mobility of retired people who have economic power to buy properties abroad. Retirement is the main push factor to initiate this migration process. As a pull factor, the pleasant climate characterized by warmer temperatures, the landscape, a quality lifestyle associated with the healthier and slower pace of life, and also the availability of information about the countries as well as previous holiday experiences are all elements that attracts immigrants to Southern Europe countries. The major impact of these immigrants in the host countries in the pressures of urbanization and the mass construction of housing in coastal and rural areas. According to the EAA in 2006, the coastal zones of Portugal and Spain, along with Ireland, had the highest rates of urbanization, about 20 to 35%. In Spain, retired immigrants settled in urbanizations, and the construction of these developments has a large expression in rural towns and villages on the Costa del Sol. In Portugal, the Algarve is the most popular area for retirement. In this area, also due to the high levels of tourism, there is an increase of infrastructure, constructions, and recreation. Golf, as one of the main attractions, has a direct impact on the modification of dune soils, loss of natural vegetation, disturbance of sensitive wildlife, and extra demand on limited water resources. Retired immigrants tend to reconstruct semi-derelict farmhouses, live in villas in the rural areas adjacent to the coastal strip, or settle in new urban development. According to Kim et al. 1998, retired immigrants in Italy settled in rural areas in Tuscany in farmhouses, but they also present a tendency for urban settlement of major cities. There are migrations which are similar but not strictly associated with retirement, since they involve people in middle or late career leaving their jobs and moving to rural areas in other countries, such as British people to rural France. They may telework or set up business, but in essence, they are working for the same lifestyle as the retirees. That is a less stressful life, a better quality of life, and perhaps the chance to live more cheaply on the same income. The third is the internal migration. This type of migration occurs inside a particular country and between regions, especially from economically poor areas and rural parts to major cities. The effect during the 1990s can be explained by the social and economic disadvantages of living in some areas. This trend, which had occurred in Western Europe for centuries, has been more or less arrested in Eastern Bloc due to social contours. But once the socialist system collapsed along with the economies, large-scale migration occurred, which, with the incorporation of many of these countries into the EU, became transformed into international labor migration. The patterns of internal migration can be quite complex and have profound effects on land as well become clear. In France, for instance, there is a north-to-south movement. However, in the old industrial areas of the north, there is also out-migration. But in this case to the Paris region, while the inhabitants of the latter tend to move south, attracted by the good image of quality of life and a healthy economic dynamism associated with cities such as Toulouse and Montpellier. The Scandinavian countries have been movements from peripheral regions and industrial areas to metropolitan areas. This tendency has been reinforced during the 1990s. In Sweden and Finland, for example, there has been large-scale rural depopulation of more remote areas, and the main cities have expanded so that increasing proportions of the population live in cities. This has resulted in some places with large empty village and the loss of rural services. These areas now tend to be dominated by, for example, industrial forestry. In the former Eastern Europe, now referred to as the Central and Eastern European countries or CEE, in the period since the collapse of the Soviet bloc, large-scale movement from rural and old industrial areas to metropolitan regions have taken place. This has been followed by out-migration to other countries. The rural areas contain a lot of abandoned land and may be dominated by old people who have been left behind. There is a tendency for young people to leave to seek education as well as work but not to return to the rural areas. However, inside the metropolitan areas, there is a tendency for suburbanizations away from Soviet or socialist era housing estates dominated by large panel buildings to single-family houses in suburbs, contributing to urban sprawl. Counter-urbanization is another type of internal migration and represent the movement of people from urban to rural areas. In England, contradicting the world's tendency, this movement is increasing has been observed since 1980s. This phenomenon is characterized mainly by an in-migration of older couples and relatively well-off families, which balance the race of younger groups moving into cities and can be explained by four drivers. The number of old people living in rural areas is also increasing, which nearly 28% and it's continuing to increase. In the UK, the retirement areas places the most attract 60 to 74 years old are primarily seaside towns, rural areas, and identify the aim of many people of re-establishing some quality.
Good morning everyone, I am Cadet Kid, University of Today, I am about why there's a global migration. So, migration is often driven by search for better livelihoods and new opportunities. Indeed, global and regional social and economic qualities are expressed most powerful through the figures of the migrants, as one who across the borders in search of work, education, and new horizon. So, humanity has always been on the move through history. We have migrated in search of new opportunities as well as to escape persecution, control, poverty. Movements of people happen in around the world. But although migration a global phenomenon, there is still no global understanding of how to manage it. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Kent Anthony Siapari and I'll be tackling the advantages of receiving and sending the immigrants countries. So first, immigration diversifies local economies. Immigrants bring new perspectives, experiences, and ideas to their local communities. Immigrants start businesses, earn income, and support others on the local level. This creates an increase in local production, which creates more profits, which further helps the economy. Second, it increases the population base. To achieve the goal, they first had to be a legalized immigrant. Their presence does more than bring and exchange cultures. It allows for more knowledge and wisdom to be shared with others by increasing the cultural awareness of everyone. Lastly, immigration negates gaps that form in certain labor markets. In low-skill employment areas, it is true that a strong presence of immigrants may depress wages because immigrants can relieve employment bottlenecks. They reduce the risk of underperformance issues occurring in the local economy. When the income levels of immigrants rise, so do the income of every other household. First, money sent home by immigrants. Sending countries is the payment of remittances.
the sending of money back home. These large transfers of money, the prosperous developed world to the poorer developing world, are often viewed as the key of the latters. Second, migrants may return with new skills. Migrants acquire skills abroad that allow them to earn higher wages than non-migrants when they return. Last but not the least, unemployment is reduced and people get better job opportunities.
Good day everyone, I'm Engine Cadet Andre Sabati Jr. So I will continue the report of Engine Cadet Aparis. So let's start. So sometimes people have a choice about whether they move, but sometimes they are forced to move. The reason people leave a place are called the push factors. The reason people are attracted to new places to live are called the pull factors. So the first disadvantages of country losing people. People of working age move out, reducing the size of country's potential workforce. In the case, people of working age much prepare on what other country has work to offer. So the growth of economy of their country may tend to decrease due to migration. So the next disadvantages of losing countries is so the second disadvantages is gender imbalance are caused as it is typically men who seek to find employment elsewhere. Women and children are left. In this case, it means that men will going to leave their families in order to have food to feed through migrating, and they have no choice because the expenses and they have families. So the third disadvantages is brain drains if many skilled workers leave. In this case, the company of its country, if other people nor workers may leave, the owner will surely drain on how to lift back his or her company due to the kind of situation. It causes bankrupt and loses its company. So the disadvantages of host country. So increasing cost of services such as healthcare and education. In case the tumbling prices reflect decades of improvements in technology and productivity, but the effect is not economy wide. Though no mystery, this rise is often misunderstood with serious economic consequences. The host country did not even have the guts to fight the most important things people needs, the healthcare and the education. So next is overcrowding. Of course, the host country will going to be more crowded. The population will grow as it finds due to a lot of people who migrate, but in this case, the growth of the host country will increase also. So disagreements between different religions and cultures. This is the most argument that people start to disagree with about the culture. We all know that we have different cultures and beliefs that not everyone agree, but the most important thing that we should consider as an individuals is understand and respect each other cultures and beliefs. Recent large-scale immigrations from developing countries have been provoked by world economy crisis and or by reactions to danger posed by armed conflicts. Migrants eventually induce social, economic, and political problems in receiving countries. In conclusion, receiving countries must have policies that responsible address the presence of economic immigrants and refugees on their territory without this being considered detrimental to the national interest. So that's all. Thank you.